You're here, guns for everyone. The other guy, his name is
Isaac Chase, Guns for Everyone.
yeah, buddy.
Man, we got to come up with something better than that. That's
Yeah, I still have the intro for the other one, but we're not doing that.
yeah,
We
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
are, but we can make another cheesy
We
ass
just got to
open.
pick some like cheesy '80s rock band instrumental,
Yeah,
and then like do flashes of like gun pictures and people shooting, like old school YouTube days.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That'd be nice. Some really stupid shit. Uh, Sweet. Appreciate you guys. Hopefully being on. I always struggle with these live ones because I think we get more views after the fact than we do in the lives. But for the one or two of you guys that joins us during the live, appreciate you guys. Obviously, the chat is open, so you guys can ask questions.
We do the live on hard mode. We don't do it on a regular schedule or at a regular time.
Yeah, for sure. And 2 hours notice.
Yeah, 2 hours. No. Hey, where the hell is everybody?
No consistency, no fucking discipline. 2 hours notice. Uh, so we got a few topics for you guys today, obviously, or else we wouldn't be on here. But I think you're going to lead this one more than I am.
Yeah, so I thought the first thing we talk about is just the latest update, since this is an ongoing changing thing, and you're more on top of it than I am.
Yeah.
What's the latest update you're hearing from the Sheriff's Association on the concealed carry permit training and firearms instructor verification?
Nothing's changed. I think everybody, the biggest confusion is people. I think people and instructors who refuse to listen to what the fuck people are like, people who know what the fuck they're talking about are saying. And so you're getting a lot of mixed information from a lot of instructors who didn't show up to the things, didn't read the things, and are hearing the stuff, and they're saying dumb shit, but nothing's changed. The requirements for training starts August 7th. I think we've been consistent on saying that since the beginning. Verification for instructors starts August 7th as well.
That will be the beginning of the process.
Yeah, the process. Yeah. That does need to be restated. Yeah, the process starts August 7th. So if you're an instructor and you want to continue teaching classes, you have to start the process August 7th. Well, not that day, but you have basically until July 1st, 2025. For the students, not much is changing. Right? This is the tough thing. This is, I think, the most confusing part is for students. If you already took a class, you don't need to do anything. You already took the class. Your certificate is valid until July 1st, 2025. Starting August 7th.
Until July 2025 or until July 1st, 2026?
2025.
Okay. So beginning July 1st, 2025, all of the old certificates are going to be invalid.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
All of the old stuff. Now, if you took a class August 7th or August 8th, anything beyond August, your certificate will be valid a year from that date because you would meet the new requirements. So the issue is anybody who took a class August 3rd, that's before the new requirements. But if you go show up July 1st, you're no longer meeting 100% the new requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why as a student, you would need a new certificate.
Okay.
So
and then for the sheriff's departments, most of them are going to follow this pattern, but I just recently heard, I believe from you and then from a student, that Jeffco is planning on doing things a little differently.
Yeah, so Jeffco, from what I know, is doing the same thing. I think they're doing a shitty job at communicating stuff. So they're sending out an email saying, hey, you need to get in here. If you don't have a certificate with the new requirements and a verified instructor starting August 7th, we're going to reject it. Well, that's unreasonable because nobody's going to be verified on August 7th. Nobody's going to have the new verification. So, um, yeah, confusing for what they're communicating. I haven't talked to anybody directly at Jefferson County, but of the reps that I've talked to through CSOC. So, for those of you guys that don't know, don't follow us on the social media, I was in a meeting with county officials. I think it was about 20 of us. And this was kind of quasi mediated. And maybe that's not the right word, but it was kind of mediated by the Firearm Safety Coalition. One of the guys there, which is part of FIPI, which I'm on the advisory board for, Firearms Injury Prevention Initiative, with the state of Colorado, with CU, is who I do it through. So they're the ones that kind of mediated this meeting. Matt Wettenkamp, which you've met, he's kind of the one that was making sure that we didn't get off topic and all that stuff. And it was a good productive meeting, especially with Boulder, because they brought their attorney. So now we got to hear it from an attorney standpoint, the struggles that they have, and all of that shit. So in that meeting, everybody seems to be pretty uniform. CSOC is the association that you were talking about, and they're the ones that are like, we're pretty much going to do this. Starting August 7th, every instructor has to be teaching the new stuff. Verification starts then. Students who take a class pre-August 7th will be good until July 1st, 2025. And then starting August 7th, everybody has to have the new certificates, new requirements, all of that stuff. Instructors have until July 1st, 2025 to get verified. So it was kind of consistent in all of that stuff. The problem is not everybody attended, not everybody showed up. Fucking Fremont County is going to be dumb about this shit. I'm just giving examples at this point because they're a rural county, and usually rural counties do their own shit because they don't talk to big cities much. So that's going to be the struggle.
Yeah. On that note, we have had experiences in the past where rural counties didn't want to follow the law. But in this case, the rural counties now have a burden to follow the law that includes expense and resources.
Yeah.
Which some of them may actually not have. Not to mention not have the willingness maybe to do that. So I think we're going to see some confusion across some of those rural counties as they, like, if you're going to have a instructor verification program in your county, and you don't have that set up, how I don't understand like how they're going to be able to meet that. Now, on that note too, the new law is requiring that the sheriff's departments violate a current existing law in order to verify firearms instructors. There's going to have to be a statewide database of instructors who hold a concealed carry permit. I would assume that the attorneys for the sheriff's office cannot advise their client to break the law. I mean, that's just big picture.
I did ask Boulder, their attorney, and it's funny because I'm talking to them and they know the shit that we just went through with Larimer County. So these are the same people that I had to send emails to, like, hey, what the fuck? And so anyways, yeah, her Boulder's attorney, and I'm only talking about Boulder because they're the only ones that brought in an attorney. I asked, what are you guys going to do about this? And they're like, well, if we follow this law, we break another law. But if we don't follow this law, we break that law. So we're breaking the law no matter what we do. So their only solution is we have to advise the instructors that you're kind of, so on the form that they're trying to unify or make universal, they're going to have a little waiver, I guess, saying, hey, your shit's going to be on the internet. You kind of have to accept this or not be verified because of the law type shit.
Which may be the only real serious grounds for litigation on this law. And I say that because the rest of it, it's going to be hard to argue in front of a judge that less training is better. Not less
Well,
chain, less mandated training, or no mandated training is
and
better.
Bruin allows for this. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. And as a special note to the people who may be listening to this, who live in Colorado, who are pissed off and crying right now about how this state is going blue, and we're turning into California and all that stuff. Just ask yourself, like, what have you done? What have you done to stop this from happening? If you haven't done anything, if you haven't shown up to testify, if you haven't contributed to organizations that are fighting the fight, if you haven't written your Congress people, if you haven't done anything, then you can stuff those tears right back in, because with it, we have enough gun owners, we have enough concealed carry permit holders, let alone gun owners in this state, that if everybody was doing their job and speaking up and standing up, this law would not have passed.
Correct.
So
yeah, I think it's been pretty eye-opening to see, like, you and I have known this since really 2010 for a while. Guns for everyone, in spite of how much hatred we get from other people. We're one of the oldest gun companies in the state of Colorado in terms of training anyways. And from the beginning, we've seen how little people show up. But I think this law in particular has really shown the level of I hate to say it, but lazy that is in the gun community. The level of unwillingness to sacrifice. And yeah, I mean, at some point, it's nice to yell on the keyboard, but if you're not going to do shit about it, then it means nothing. So it's been, I've seen it a lot more because we see it in class.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common in class to get people who riled up and complaining about this when I try to explain it to them. It's also a consequence of success. This state was a very stable pro-gun state for so long that, generally speaking, people got lazy.
Which includes Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a big problem too, is we still have a lot of pro-gun Democrats that will probably be on our side if you don't have super duper anti-Democrat Republicans who alienate them. So you have the few that are like, I'm kind of in the middle. I couldn't give two shits about guns. I see why people have them. My friends have them. My family has them. I was in the military, whatever. And then you have the fucking Republicans that will fucking call them up and be like, I hope you die. And then now all of a sudden, like, that's not who I want with the gun.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think in general, across the country, we've generally seen success in the protection of gun rights to the point where people just do take it for granted. It's a very small group of gun owners who are keeping these organizations like GOA and FPC and Second Amendment Foundation afloat with donations.
Correct.
And thank God they are, that the people who are doing it, but most people don't really do anything to protect their rights. And I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to explain why this kind of stuff happens in Colorado, because we don't do anything about it.
Yeah. And I think that's where humans get lost with this, is they misunderstand what we're trying to say. And I think that's a problem. And maybe that's our fault. Maybe that's our fault for not communicating properly, but I don't know how else to say it. A good analogy would be is, like, you ever let somebody borrow money? And I say this knowing that I owe you money. But that was a fuck up.
But you didn't borrow it.
I didn't borrow. I fucking took it, little bitch. No, that was a fuck up. But you ever let somebody borrow money and then they go on vacation, and then you're like, what the fuck? And then you're like, you're not mad that they went on vacation. Like you're mad that they complained that they were broke and they don't have any money, and then you let them borrow money and all of a sudden they go on vacation. Again, it's not the vacation. Like, that's not what the fuck I'm mad at. But I'm still expressing an emotion towards the action, right?
Right.
It's
Well,
not
that
the
person who took your money and went on vacation misrepresented their priorities.
correct, correct. So and I think that's what happens here is you say hey, and then people take the words that you say. You're like, well, I guess I need to do everything. Like, no, that's not the fuck we're saying. We're saying we just need to be
I don't
cautious
want
about how we
Yeah,
go
I don't
forward.
want you sitting there taking up valuable class time bitching about something that you're not willing to do anything about.
Hmm.
That's my biggest reason for trying to shut that down in the classes. I really would rather not talk about it,
Correct.
you know?
And that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like like I want you to be upset about it. I'm
Yeah.
not saying don't talk about it. I'm not saying don't do that. It's just you're misunderstanding when I say don't bitch. Like
Mhm.
that's it doesn't mean don't be mad about it.
Mhm.
You just have to do it properly. Like you
Right.
just have to go about this the right way.
Yeah. All right, so that's out of the way. Red dots. Let's talk about red dots.
Red
Red
dots.
dots in defensive shooting context specifically. Um, the intuitive defensive shooting curriculum, combat focused shooting, got its start before red dots were common on defensive handguns. What was common though at the time were laser sights, laser grips or whatever. Those were more common, I would say, than even are now. And both of them have a similar issue, I think, when it comes to defensive shooting, which is if I'm going to focus on my target because I'm close enough, my target is large enough, the need to shoot allows me to take that shot without needing to use my sights, I'm still going to see the dot. I'm still going to see the red dot sight floating in front of my eyeballs. I'm still going to see the grip laser painted on the target. And I had two of these in the class I taught on Saturday, and both of them were struggling with the chasing the dot, even though they were trying not to focus on the dot.
Correct.
Um, and I just wanted to get your opinion on, from a training point of view, like if you train with red dots, you may or may not see enough benefit with the red dot to justify the expense and adding complexity to your firearms, to your self defense equipment. But if you do, and yet you're struggling with this tracking the dot when you don't need to track the dot, uh, what is your approach to that?
So, and that's generally speaking why I don't like when beginners talk about like, oh, I'm thinking about a red dot. Like, don't just learn how to use your regular sights because it's still a dot. Even
Mhm.
even that is just a dot because your front sight has a nice little dot on it, and it's literally the same thing. The advantages, like you mentioned, are very minimal. So my approach has always been your focus ought to be on the target anyways.
Mhm.
Like they should not be on the dot at all
Mhm.
until we get there. But so because I don't have a gun, but people will chase the dot and then the muzzle is now being rocked back and forth side to side. And
Mhm.
then that's where a lot of the inaccuracies are at as you're trying to chase that fucking dot.
Right.
It's all about the visual focus from what I've seen in the general sense. Obviously, there's a few oddballs. Is just look at the fucking target. I
Right.
had one this Sunday. I just turned it off. She didn't even know. She's like, it's off. It's broke. I was like, yeah, just fucking ignore it. Just look at the target
Mhm.
because that was one of the things she was doing is kind of trying to chase that. She was a beginner trying to chase that. We worked on a few other things, but once I turned it off, we were no longer worrying about chasing the dot. We were no longer fixated on that. We were now working on the mechanics instead of the visual focus.
Yeah.
That's been my biggest thing is sometimes I'll just tape it. I'll put a little piece of electrical tape over it.
Over the emitter.
Yeah. Just block it because
Mhm.
now their visual focus is where it needs to be.
Right.
Um,
So with the red dot sight, like you could imagine that you're looking at the target but then, or just looking at something in front of you and trying to focus on that one thing, but then you got like a fly buzzing around
Yeah.
between you and the target. Like, I'm definitely looking at the thing,
Yeah.
but the fly keeps crossing my
Correct.
visual field.
Yeah.
And that is going to add visual and cognitive processing time.
Yeah.
If you can't ignore what you're seeing with your eyeballs.
Yeah. When a good drill that I love the fuck out of this drill, and it helps. I do it sooner when I have a bunch of people with red dots with that issue. Is the dynamic deviation control. Do you run that drill?
Most of the time, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I didn't this last Saturday because aside from this red dot issue,
Yeah.
the students in the class were actually shooting very consistently,
Yeah.
which was maybe the most consistent shooting I've had from a class in memory.
Yeah. So for those of you guys not familiar, a drill that we do, a dynamic deviation control. This is more of a mental thing, more a psychological thing, more than anything else. And that is a drill where we basically have you extend your gun out and draw a shape. So now you're drawing a shape with your muzzle in the box. So within the box, you're drawing a shape, circle, a pine cone, whatever the fuck we're saying, and we will call the command to fire. When we call that command, you take one shot, one single shot as you're drawing that shape. We don't want you to stop the gun. There's no stopping of the movement while you're doing this, because now people are focused on the drawing and looking at the drawing, and they focus on the target a lot more. And then that's when people are like, usually that's when humans are like, I can look at the target. The gun doesn't have to be perfect. This also works for the people who are like fucking themselves, and is a good way to unfuck themselves, is that dynamic deviation control. This helps a lot with the red dot people who are trying to chase that shit, because now their brain is thinking of something else.
Yeah.
Other than the fly that you mentioned, because it is a real thing.
Yeah.
Like shit, I do it when I turn it on. I don't carry a red dot, but when I use guns with red dots, it's like, oh
yeah.
shit, shiny.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
tough.
So what at the during the debrief, I talked to this student, and like, to be completely honest, like, this is not something I'm real strong on when it comes to this, from this intuitive defensive shooting, struggling with this piece of equipment, applying the principles and the concepts and then the skills. And so I told him, if this was me having this problem, I would take that gun home, turn the red dot off, and practice getting a consistent presentation of the firearm without the dot. Just consistently present the gun in front of you, full arm extension, head down, and get that to where it's very repeatable. And then go to the range and do that and start firing, and then turn the red dot back on and see if you can maintain that target focused shooting, even though the red dot is now part of the picture.
Correct.
So,
yeah,
and that was just problem solving, troubleshooting around that.
Correct. The other issue that I've had to pay attention to is when the students say they're looking at the target, and I know they're not, because what I'll see them do is, as they are extending out and they go for that extension, they're already looking at the red dot. So,
or you'll see the muzzle, tracking as if their eyes were moving, because they're trying to find the dot with the gun extended.
No, but this is before they're even fully extended. So they're already here, and they're already looking at the fucking red dot. And that's usually when I call stop, and like, your fucking eyes need to be over there, because you're already looking before you even bring the fucking gun fully forward. You're already looking at the gun, which is not something we recommend anyway, because of tachypsychia and proprioception. But that's another thing that I look for, is where are your eyes? As you're extending out, they should be on the target. They should not. But as soon as you make that decision, that fucker needs to die. So I don't die. Your eyes should be on that shit, not on anything else, really. So that's another thing that I look for, is where are the students' eyes as they're extending.
So then the other thing was not the red dot, but was the laser sight grip. Sure. Who makes that grips sight? I see it so off or so rarely now. I can't even remember. Crimson
Surefire?
Trace. Crimson Trace.
Crimson Trace, yeah.
Crimson Trace used to be the hotness, right? In the
early 2000s.
Yeah. This guy had done a significant amount of training at Front Sight in the 2000s. So I wasn't, I was like, oh, click, there it is. There's the reason why you've got the Crimson Trace. He was doing his own dynamic deviation control. So he was older, and I'm watching his dot on the target, and it's going all over the place.
Everywhere.
But it was staying in the target.
Yeah.
Staying in the high center chest. And when he pressed the trigger, the bullet was staying in the high center chest.
Yeah.
And he's asking me, like, what do I do about all the movement in the gun? I said, why do you care? Look at your target.
Yeah.
Like your movement is okay because it's even though you can't control it down to nothing, it's staying within that area.
Correct.
But he could not think about the dot moving around.
And that's why I generally tell him not to use it and take it off, is because now you're entering into a potential of anticipating instead of actually thinking about responding to it or reacting to something. So now the brain is, as long as it's there, I'm going to hit it. And that's not always the case.
Well, for him, he was trying to problem solve something that didn't need to be solved.
Correct.
Which was adding time to his shooting.
Yeah. And this is part of fucking, I'm going to do a video about this and why this is so important in training. Like we see this a lot in the mental health side of stuff, but it's the amygdala hijacking. So the amygdala hijacking has this alertness, like warning. It's like it's a warning, right? Type of shit. And then sometimes it's a boy who cries wolf. So he's thinking about like, this is a problem. And then the amygdala is, it's not, but the amygdala, the limbic system has no choice but to follow through with the potential problem. Because so that gets ingrained into your system, like, oh, there's that problem again, but there's not a problem.
Right.
So it's a little complex on that side of it, but in the training side of it is just turn the fucking thing off, take the batteries off. And then don't use it because it is really difficult to overcome in training when we do have peripheral vision. When he actually needs to shoot the fucker, he's probably not even going to notice that the fucking dot is there. The problem is in the training when it's a controlled environment and we're not in the lower brain. We are actually fucking thinking. We're not in the lizard brain mode.
Well, even worse, what if he does think about it when he needs to be defending? Like, best case scenario is he doesn't think about it. Worst case scenario is he's sitting there trying to track the dot on this dude's hoodie when he's trying to press the trigger, but his brain is telling him, until that dot is where I want it to be, I can't shoot.
Yeah.
As far as his trigger press goes, his trigger press was pretty consistent throughout the class. He's older gentleman, and so his physical skills are really at that more decline point than they are on the improvement. And I was talking to like Michael Bain about that when I was up there with Jason up in Fort Collins. Yeah. Michael Bain is he's in his 70s, I think. And he talks about that, like this is where I'm at. I'm not going to get any better at this stuff. I'm only going to get worse, but the consistency is what allows me to perform at the best level possible, given my age, given the limitations, health problems, etc. Which is a good place to be. It's a good place to understand, as far as your own limits, that you can still perform at the peak of your current abilities. So if you're not familiar with Michael Bain, entertaining guy. I just
not the Batman guy, but
not the Batman guy, not Bane. He's got a podcast. I've been listening to his podcast, and he passed the intuitive defensive shooter instructor course. He doesn't.
I helped teach that one.
Yeah, he doesn't teach like formally,
Correct.
but when he was present as kind of like an extra set of eyes on the range, he knows the material, and he
Yeah.
can present it. Um, so yeah, I was just encouraging this guy, like, don't worry about these limitations. Watch what your shooting looks like and make adjustments when your shooting is not what you when your balance of speed and precision is not what you want it to be, then
Yeah.
make adjustments. Don't think of these limitations that you have until they actually present themselves. So
Yeah. And then the problem with that is now, because that's correct, right? Like, don't
mhm,
fucking worry about the laser. Like, are your shots hitting? Yes or no?
mhm,
People like that, though, the problem is now they're only fixating on where the shot's going
mhm,
instead of actually thinking about just the shooting, the actual movement, the follow through, the settling of the gun, which
yeah,
obviously he was doing fine,
yeah,
or else he wouldn't have been getting his hits.
yeah.
But now he's shooting significantly slower than what he's probably actually capable of.
Yeah, and I would say, generally speaking, during the class, he was shooting slower than what he truly was capable
Correct.
of. Um, Even though, if you ask him, I think he would say that he was shooting as fast as he could. But I could tell that there was delays that didn't need to be there.
Correct.
Um, so, and then the other student, a different student, this is not a red dot issue, but this gets into that comfort and competency. Um, and I had a student in the class who certainly was not excited about shooting guns and being in a group of people
Yeah.
shooting guns. She made it very clear that she was very nervous, and within the first 5 minutes, she tried to quit.
Uh,
Um, and she did stick around for most of the class, and she was really struggling with accuracy. Like,
yeah.
but her reason for struggling with accuracy is because she was so nervous and scared.
Yeah.
And I was able to prove to her a couple of times that she was in fact capable of being just as accurate as everybody else had been in
Correct.
the class, but only at that moment when her brain had settled down. And so for me, very quickly, the point of her being in that class was just to get her comfortable around shooting guns. Like,
Correct.
I wasn't trying to push her and be like, "Hey, you should be working on your speed, or let's tighten this group up." It's just, let's get comfortable drawing a firearm, presenting a firearm, doing that next to somebody. She got hit with a piece of brass at one point and just completely froze. Like, fear just shut her down.
She didn't know what
And
the
she was
fuck to
very
do.
forward about it. She wasn't trying to be like
Yeah.
self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought it was very brave of her to push herself that hard and stick it with the class as long as she did. And then
Yeah.
when she was done, when she needed to stop, she was very clear. I mean, we didn't argue about it. I could tell. I was like, "Yep, you're right. You're done." You know, and I think it was a very productive day for her, even though if you were to like try to look at her target and be like, whose target was this? It's like, for her, that was not the point. That subjective goal was like, let's just get comfortable
I
around
wonder
that.
if we shared student, because I had the same shit happen on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Like, they probably went to you Saturday and then drove to me on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like a very similar situation that would happen on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, again, very, very similar. Is this human? It was no longer the goal was be a good. Which, by the way, we don't teach to be better shooters. Our program isn't designed to be better shooters. That's what marksmanship classes are for.
Hmm.
Our classes are for you to become a more efficient shooter, not necessarily a fucking top shot or anything like that. Obviously, with that comes an accurate shooter and all that shit, but it's really
Hmm.
more about being an efficient shooter. But yeah, it was like, what the fuck. At some point, she like fucking, the emotions got the best of her, and she didn't finish completely. I think she only missed 2 drills. I
Hmm.
think she only missed 2 drills because she was like, "Yeah, I'm good. Time out. This is fucking. I've had
Yeah.
enough."
Funny enough, the thing that put her over the line of things that she didn't want to do anymore was when we started doing the, facing away from the target and,
Yeah.
React and then orient.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't know if I trust these other 6 people. She was like, I don't want to be on the line while people are doing this. And I go, okay, that's that comfort thing,
Yeah.
and that safety thing,
Yeah.
which is I can tell her all day long that it's safe, but if it's hitting the points in her brain, those stress points, there's no learning going on anymore.
Correct.
It's just fear, it's just anxiety.
Yeah.
And we can try to talk to the brain, but the brain, if it's not responding, then there's no point in continuing to try to convince the frontal cortex that everything's cool.
Correct.
So
you can't. The limbic system wins every fucking time.
Yeah,
it wins every fucking time.
So speaking of limbic system, you started doing some videos on the main Guns for Everyone YouTube channel.
Yeah.
First one you did was on choosing a handgun and talking about fit. The other video, the next one you did was on the limbic system, and very sciencey.
I just finished one today talking about continuing the choosing of the firearm, and this one has to do with pressure and why small guns are stupid, and why small guns are not necessarily an option. And we look at it from a physics standpoint. But yeah, I do have those 2 videos up.
So the limbic system one, you went into quite a bit of detail on.
You think so? I barely even fucking scratched the surface.
Well, how deep can you get into the limbic system in 20 minutes? Like,
yeah.
But deeper than I mean, every firearms training course that I can remember that I've been in, except the NRA basic pistol course, has talked about the fight or flight. But that's usually all that's said. In fight or flight, your brain will not be able to process as much information. Your skill level is going to go down, and that's like the extent of the conversation. Yeah. It's true, but it's very, very insufficient for explaining why that should affect our training and how that should affect our training.
Yeah.
The video you did, like you're way more nerded out on this stuff. You go a lot deeper than I do, especially on presenting and explaining this to people. I spent a lot of time learning about it, but I'm not that good at recalling it and explaining it in a cohesive way to students. I understand the fundamentals of how it works and some of the science behind it, but generally speaking, the sympathetic nervous system response causes changes to the body and the way the brain processes information.
Yeah. And
we are trying to train for that, but it doesn't always happen, right? If you get into a fight and you're like, this is the 15th time I've been in this situation and I saw it coming, I couldn't avoid it, but I knew it was coming and I was prepared. I might be less in that limbic system than somebody who gets hit from behind, turns around, sees a gun pointed in their face, and goes like straight to condition black. The variation in the limbic system response is a real thing, but we're training as if the limbic system was going to be the primary system working, because if it is what's controlling our actions and our thoughts, we can't reason our way around that.
Mm. Right? And the biggest thing is you don't know how the attack is going to happen. You might say, I was in the military, I know what gunshots sound like. Yeah, great. But do you know how a fucking child who just got shot in the fucking face sounds like? Do you know how a handgun sounds like? Versus, because if you were in war, you probably heard bombs and explosions and shit like that. And maybe that's what you're used to. You're not used to a 9mm. Maybe you're not used to the type of armament, and it may not even be that. It might be a stabbing. Your brain doesn't know how to process the stabbing the same way it does the other stuff. So we're taking it as this is the automatic response in the most likely of scenarios, right? There's no absolutes, but this is what your body's your reaction, I'm sorry, not response. This is the reaction, the automatic stuff that you have zero fucking control over. The best we can do is provide a response to that stimulus so that we don't freeze. Generally speaking, a freeze is, I've never been here before, I don't know what the fuck to do. So now we need to tell the brain what to do in that moment. So this is why in our classes, all of our classes, every class is different. So generally speaking, in our classes, we tell you to do stuff in specific ways so that the brain has a repetition of, like, an example. If I just extend out and I just shot the bad guy, you look at the bad guy or whatever until the gun comes back to high compress ready. Once the gun is at a high compress ready, that is a stimulus for your brain to snap the fuck out of it and start looking for other potential threats or doing your evaluation. But without that repetition, it's going to be really difficult for your brain to understand, hey, it's time to evaluate, because it's still in the sympathetic movement of being hyper fixated on something that it no longer has to be fixated on. Right. And that's why training for it is super important. Even if you do have some sort of micro reaction to it, you should still train for it as if you don't, because it may not be that one thing. This is where timer people are silly, right? Because you're trying to bypass something you can't bypass.
You're bypassing, and you're taking the cognitive processing of chaos out of the equation. I was watching another instructor on YouTube talking about some of the things around practice, and generally speaking, a lot of the things he was talking about, I would agree with. But one of the things that he was doing is, as he was demonstrating on the range, he was not doing any movement or assessment. And I brought it up in the comments, like, why are you not doing that? And his reaction, or his answer back, was like, well, I'm by myself out here, and I know there's no one else around. And, if I turn around and look behind me, there'll be nobody standing there. And that's very true. But that's not what you're training for. You're not training for, oh, I know my environment, and so I am going to act this way. You're training for chaos, and we want the automated response is, after I defend, I assess.
Correct.
And
it might be nobody there, but it may also be the guy behind the bush that was waiting for the attack to. And when you did your initial assessment of the environment, there was nobody there because you didn't see the guy in the bush waiting for the ambush.
Right. And so it's funny because that whole assessment thing got a real bad rap when YouTube started to become popular in the gun community, and we start seeing a lot more videos of instructors and students on the range and people doing scans. And I think part of it was like, obviously this person is not actually assessing their environment.
Correct.
It's like what they call range theatrics, which is true. But it also kind of got people, I think, to believe that if you did do an assessment after you shot, that you were just doing it because you were supposed to, do that step, even like, so the nuance was taken out of it. And it was just like, if you do this, you're a poser, so don't do it. And now we have people who are self-conscious about doing it on camera.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to give them a hard time. Oh, what are you looking at? Oh, but in Rob Pincus and Rob Latham's video series they did, that scan and assess was really important when it came to multiple threats and being able to quickly identify a new threat that was not previously known when the shooting started. So anyway, all that to say, that limbic system video is incredibly important and is probably going to get like 300 views over the next 10 years. Because you don't have like tattoos all over your arms, and you're not sitting there like,
I don't do this.
Yeah. You don't have like a big stupid look on your face like in the video.
It's a type of stupid look, but it's not.
So
if you guys haven't, Isaac brought it up, so I just want to make sure that we tell you guys where to find it. If you just Google Rob Pincus Latham, they're both Rob Pincus and Rob Latham. Worlds Collide. It's worlds, not just world. Worlds Collide. you will find their videos. I think I wish they would still do them, but I think at some point you can't really talk about it much more. I think they had like 6 episodes of this.
Yeah.
And they talk about timers, and they talk about what you talk about, the assessment, the ready positions. There's really a different. Latham comes from he's one of I think the most decorated, the most championships, the most wins in the competitive world, and then Pincus being one of the top instructors for defensive shit in the world. I would say the best, me personally, but obviously that's up for debate. I'm sure if you ask Pincus will tell you, of course, I'm the fucking greatest.
You're both gonna say the other guy is the best, right? Because that would be the humble thing to do.
No, fuck no. No bullshit. I talk about this in class all the time, and people think I'm joking. I was like, I genuinely think that in many circles, I am the best instructor. And then people kind of chuckle. I was like, no, I'm fucking serious. Like, if the best instructor was available to teach this class right now, guess what the fuck? Guess what I would tell you to do? Like, I would tell you go to that motherfucker. Like, if Pincus was in town, he's like, I'm available. I'm gonna be like, fucking teach my class then, because if the fucking better instructor is available, like the audacity. When I'm around Derek Poole, I encourage you guys to look him up. If you're in Florida, take a class with him. If Derek Poole is there, I'm gonna be like, hey fucker, like what the fuck am I teaching the class for? Like, you do it, because he's a better instructor than I am. So I think
if you invite me around and I start talking,
shut the fuck up.
That means I think I'm better than you.
And in many things you
otherwise
are.
I would just shut up.
Yeah, in many things you are, right? Like I think you articulate things a little bit better than I do. One, English.
Yeah, that's my privilege right there.
That's your privilege. You know English. You know it more from an educated standpoint, and shit like that. So like there are plenty of areas where it's just like, I think Isaac is better. So I know you have jokingly say that we would say the other person is better. But
yeah, like, no, that was a joke because neither one of you would do that.
For sure. For sure, because you can't. Like, I think the community benefits more from that realism of like, no, I'm pretty fucking good. And if somebody's better, why the fuck would I waste your time with me? I would just tell you, go to the fucking better person. And so I think that's where instructors who are like, well, just take other classes and take whatever you want. Bullshit, motherfucker. If you're not the best, why am I paying you? You little bitch.
So, on that note, I did a video on the Guns for Everyone Isaac channel about doing like, what are you really looking for from an instructor and what are you really looking for from a class? And I didn't include this specific topic of, you want somebody who absolutely knows what they're talking about. That's implied, but it is a relevant part, because I've had people who I've heard in various places complain about, oh, Edgar just like thinks he knows everything, and like if you ask him a question or if he asks you a question and he doesn't like the answer, he's just gonna like shit on you, make fun of you, and all that stuff. Maybe, but you need to get past all of that to understand why are we answering this question? We are answering this question because this is life and death.
Yeah.
And so if I don't believe I have the best answer, then like, why are you in my class? Why, you're here for the free piece of paper? Oh, you're here for the free piece of paper. You're not here to listen to me. Then shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck
and just
up.
Take the free piece of paper. Like, why you got to talk about it as if there was some kind of conflict here? You weren't willing to have that conflict.
Right.
Now it's not perfect, and like, I've made mistakes in this world and of conflict, but the goal in the conversation is to get to the right answer.
Correct.
And if you're not coming with good, solid information, then like, you need to just listen. And on top of that, I've had information, I've had conflicting information come from weird places where you're like, yeah, that's probably not right. Well, let me think about that.
Correct.
Yeah, I think you have a point there, even though
Correct.
I wouldn't have expected coming from this person.
Correct.
But let me listen to that. Let me think about it, and you know,
Get your
try
better
to
answer.
reason through that. So
Yeah, I think a lot of students are not ready to be challenged
yeah.
when they show up to the class. And I kind of changed one of our slides to kind of make that part of the expectation. You're here to be challenged,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're going to get the free piece of paper, right? Like you're going to have to work for that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you're going to carry a gun, and we've mentioned this before, but if you're going to carry a gun for self-defense and you ask me a question based off of dumb shit. Now it's not you, you're not the dumb one. But I have to challenge that. I have to make you work for that shit because it's not going to be memorable if all I do is just provide a simple fucking answer. If you're like, hey, is the sky blue? Like, yeah. And then that's it. Well, no, it's more complex than that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot more complex. When we talk about that, you have to talk about the atmosphere and how your eyes have fucking receptors, RGB and shit like that. And that's why the sky's blue. It's not just because it's fucking blue. It's much more complex than that. So when I talk about it, yeah, and I've mentioned this in class too. I was like, I know you guys are frustrated with me. The choosing of the gun, the one of the reasons why I do the video, and I started to do those videos is because that question I ask it. I actually asked him why, like, how did you choose the gun? Oh, it better, it needs to feel comfortable. And I asked him, what the fuck does that mean? And then fucking 10 minutes later, nobody's answered it. They've changed the subject fucking 15 times, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody's actually said. So yeah, like that's me challenging you, or at least getting you to understand everything I've heard before is actually bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I've heard before needs to be challenged, needs to be
Yeah.
reevaluated.
And
And
another
I'm
aspect
sorry,
of
you little bitch, if you don't fucking like that.
another aspect of that is like if you come to a class and you're not challenged, especially when you're new to guns, if you're not challenged, I think it's very easy for you to walk out of that class thinking that guns and self-defense are simple and straightforward.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then and therefore I don't need to continue to put effort into training and learning.
yeah.
And I'm not saying that everybody thinks that, but I think that's a pretty simple path to go from, oh, that class affirmed all of my assumptions. Therefore, my assumptions must be good. Therefore, I must have an instinct for this. Therefore, I don't really need any more education or training on it.
Correct.
Um, and if you come in and you have your assumptions challenged and picked apart and actually shown to be wrong, then you're hopefully a little bit closer to that. I don't really know much about this at all.
Correct.
And if I'm going to take this seriously, I've got a lot of effort on my part that I need to put forth. Um, and that's how I like, for me personally, I don't do a perfect job of this, but when I go to a training class, that is my attitude. I am
Yeah,
going to put my assumptions down and try to develop a deeper understanding based on what I'm learning here. So,
yeah. There's this kind of to follow up with that because you had mentioned how complex this conversation is,
hmm
and that's part of the reason why I'm making these videos. But like, this is just a preview of the shit that I'm going to be talking about in other videos in terms of calibers and momentum and shit like that, angular momentum. Like if we just to give the viewers right now, those that are watching, an example of how complex it is to choose a gun. A lot of people will attribute power to how the muzzle flip goes, and just an example, right? This is I forget his name, but Smarter Every Day.
good channel.
Uh,
Good channel.
really good channel, yeah, for sure. He's shooting a Glock. He presses the trigger, and then you will see that rotation. I'm going to talk about it a lot more in the other video, but you start to see the gun rising, and it goes up. That flip that we're all kind of familiar with, and then we see him shoot a 50 cal, a Barrett 50 BMG, and as he shoots that, This is all in slow-mo. You will notice that there is really no muzzle rise. So when we look at this, shows it a lot more. Oh, let's go back a little bit. You see that force going to the rear. So that's a significantly heavier bullet, more powerful bullet. And there really isn't any muzzle rise. There really is no muzzle climb. So why is that? Well, a lot of it has to do with bore axis, right? So like momentum is a vector. It is a linear thing. It has a positive and it has a negative in terms of movement because of the third law of motion. So yeah, a lot of people are like, what the fuck? I just want to choose a gun. It feels good. I don't know what the fuck that means, but it feels good. Yeah, but it's much more complex than that, right? Like,
Yeah. And why is it important? Because you're relying on this tool to save your life.
Correct.
And if you can get 0.1% better performance out of just picking the right grip size and like where your hand is going to fit on the gun and where it should fit on the gun, if you can get that little competitive edge, that could be the difference between you surviving or not.
Yep.
And so I think that people like kind of look at this more from a feeling point of view or an academic point of view, and not from that context of like, where are all the advantages that I can get
Correct.
within the reason of my budget and my time.
Correct. And that makes you more efficient because I have to shoot the fucker that's trying to kill me in the least amount of time, effort, and energy, which means, by the way, less processing of information. So, and which helps my limbic system be more sympathetic instead of having to do all of the super complex thinking and problem solving, which you may not be able to do at that moment. So,
yeah. All right, let's switch gears. The one of the other things I wanted to talk about, because this comes up, I would say this comes up at least every other class I teach, even though not all the classes I do are the law focused self-defense law. I do get this question quite a bit, and you probably do too. If I choose this ammo, if I do this to my gun, if I train, if I don't train, what can be used against me in court by a prosecutor trying to put me in jail in front of a jury? And the short answer to that is anything. Anything can be potentially used against you to characterize to a jury why you were unreasonable in your actions. And this is frustrating for people because they think of this from the higher level of like, well, if I'm just trying to be a better defender, why and how could that be used against me? And the prosecutor is not looking at you as a defender. The prosecutor is looking at you as a potential conviction.
correct.
And just like any other fight, they're going to look for any advantage that they can get within what the law allows to get that conviction. And so it's kind of the equivalent of like, if we're doing MMA and we're doing no rules, then like nut shots and eye pokes are on the table. We like, you may not think it's fair, you may think it's dirty, but if it's within the law, if it's within the rules, it's gonna happen.
Correct.
So once again, we don't train to or buy our equipment to satisfy the law.
Correct.
We do it to improve our chances of winning the fight.
Right.
So is good, accurate training a reasonable way for you to spend your time and money to improve your chances or to be better prepared to defend yourself? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can a prosecutor characterize you as somebody who was looking for an opportunity to kill somebody, and look, this is where you spent your time and money to go out and learn how to become a more efficient killer? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why you get a good defense attorney and some expert witnesses to help explain why your training was reasonable and why getting training at all is reasonable.
Correct. If you guys on that note, if you guys Google guns for everyone, I'm going to do it here. Guns for everyone, FLP coupon. Now I'm doing this without their permission, so don't tell anyone. But if you guys do that, let me just show you what kind of pops up. So if you guys go to Guns for Everyone, FLP coupon, you will see our website says Farms Legal Protection coupon codes.
Mm-hmm.
Go on there so you can get 1 free month of Farms Legal Protection. It has the biggest thing is their app has Ask the Attorney, so now you can ask an attorney any question.
Mm-hmm.
So do that. Highly encourage you guys to take advantage of it because of what Isaac just said.
Yeah.
This idea that, well, I'm trying to minimize not getting prosecuted. Cool. Don't go outside. Don't defend yourself. Don't fight. That's awesome, right? Don't fucking be a fucking dum-dum and look for fights. Because that's really the only way you're going to avoid prosecution is if you avoid as many fights as you possibly can. But we all understand in the real world, I can't avoid every fucking fight because I can't control what other humans do. I can only control my emotions, my feelings, my stuff. Can't control what other humans do.
Right.
But yeah, I mean that's I wish more people would understand that anything you do with the firearm, anything you do with your hands, anything you do with the fucking knife has a potential of landing your ass in jail, even if you're right, even if you're correct.
Even if you're correct, even if you made your decision without any thought. I'm not going to say this for sure, but my suspicion is that Kyle Rittenhouse used 55 grain Full Metal Jacket ammo in his rifle that night because that's what was already in the magazine.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he did not sit there and consider the pros and cons of getting some soft points or some hollow points. He was just like, okay, is the gun loaded? Let's go.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that he never really considered that might ever come up in the argument for defending himself.
Correct.
And yet it became a significant part of the argument.
Yeah.
Stupidly. And you have to understand your jury is not going to probably know that much about guns.
Yeah.
Your prosecutor may also not know that much about guns. They might have a consultant who will tell them like, well, generally speaking, Full Metal Jacket ammo is military issue ammo.
Yeah. And a lot of those consultants are dumb. We've seen plenty. We go look at videos of firearms consultants in courts getting yelled at by other people who know more about fucking guns than they do.
Which happened in not in Alec Baldwin's trial, but the armorer's trial. I always forget her name. Their consultant made some pretty bonehead moves with the gun in the courtroom. It doesn't really matter how bad the consultant is if the jury doesn't know any better.
Correct.
As far as that interaction goes. Now, it does matter if you have a good defense attorney and some other consultants on your part who can embarrass them and who can say, look how little this person knows. We are providing actual expert opinions, expert testimony. All of that to say, though, Kyle's most important job when the fight started was to win that fight. When he was attacked, his job was to fight to win. And if he had chosen different ammo that night, that different choice would have also been scrutinized.
Correct.
And characterized differently, but for the same purpose,
Correct.
to make him look like a killer. And so we make gear decisions and tactic decisions and training decisions based on how well they work to improve our chances and our abilities to defend ourselves. So Full Metal Jacket ammo can work. Hollow point ammo tends to work better. Especially when we're talking about reducing risk to other people. So I'm picking it because I don't want to hurt other people. If a prosecutor puts up a slide of a hollow point bullet and the damage it does to the body and then shows that to the jury, I'm like, okay, well, here's my expert witness to explain why that's normal. Will the jury agree with me? I don't know. But if I don't win the fight or if I hurt the wrong person, then none of that conversation matters. So,
which by the way, on that topic, I'll be doing a video on the physics of ballistics, talking about elasticity and conservation of momentum and all that shit. So we'll have something like that. But yeah, I mean it's going to be scrutinized no matter what the fuck you do.
Yeah. Where we see modifications to firearms really have a negative net impact is when people don't really understand how a gun works,
Yeah.
and they don't understand how safeties work, and they don't
Correct.
understand defensive shooting
Correct.
and how that's different from competition shooting. And so they try to make performance upgrades on a firearm that doesn't need any
Correct.
performance upgrades. And they tamper with the design of the firearm in a way
Yeah.
that causes malfunctions or causes unreliable consistency issues with the shooting. Um, and so, yeah, you might be able to tell the prosecutor that you were doing this in the name of self-defense, but first and foremost, it's not working for self-defense.
Correct.
And people are quick to spend money. I remember when I bought my Smith and Wesson Shield, I get it home and I start doing some dry fire on it. I'm like, man, this trigger sucks.
Fucking
I mean,
shit.
this trigger is garbage. It's the worst trigger I've ever had. And I started immediately looking for an Apex trigger
Yeah.
for that gun. I didn't end up buying one. I took it to the range and I found, the trigger's fine.
Yeah.
Feels,
Yeah. It
it
works.
feels like crap, but it shoots fine. There's no problems with the way this gun is firing. And so there, I just saved myself 150 bucks.
Correct.
Because, and that's what happens a lot is people will try things in a controlled environment, like at home or whatever, and they won't actually put it in context. And then they want to change it
Correct.
before they've got a chance to test it in that context.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
and I think to some degree that's true with red dot sights too. I mean, people see the red dot hotness, and they're like, "Oh, it's milled for a red dot. That's what I want." And then they go out and buy a red dot, and then they put it through a class, and they're like, "Well, that was $400 I didn't have to spend."
Fucking wasted.
So,
Fucking. And it's not to say you can't take advantage of the red dot. Just learn how to use it first, and then you can take advantage of it.
yeah.
Because
And
now
for me
you know.
personally, as far as defensive shooting goes, I think in my own defensive shooting, I've seen a small benefit with the red dot,
Yeah.
very small.
Yeah.
But that benefit is not justified against keeping the red dot clean, dealing with battery issues,
Potential cracking.
getting wet, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And so even though I know that from a defensive shooting point of view, I might get that extra 0.1%, from an actual practical carrying a gun every day point of view, it's not an advantage.
It's not. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and
for
that's not
sure.
true for everybody, because if you're OCD about it and you're like, no, I'm going to keep mine clean, and you're up there every single morning with a Q-tip and some alcohol, fine.
Which presents another problem though. Now you are increasing the unnecessary touching of the firearm, and the more you unnecessarily touch the gun, statistics, plain old fucking math, the more you do shit unnecessarily, the higher the chances are you're going to have an accident with that firearm.
Yep.
Because more touches for no reason. So we're kind of winding down. I did want to mention something for those of you guys that want to hate me more. Hate you bitches. In October, I don't know how they're going to be doing this, but I was invited by the state of Colorado and Trailhead Institute to be a part of this roundtable. This is, it says, only me have been identified as a key leader in the mental health thing, but it's going to be October 14th and 15th. It's going to be up in Vail. Again, I don't know how open it is to the public. Encourage you guys to kind of look for that shit, but also just to kind of note that Guns for Everyone is doing a lot more for that in the gun community and the mental health and navigating emotions and feelings with gun ownership and all that shit, which is something that I've always been proud of that we do is being involved in that, and to be recognized as an organization that's a leader in this shit is always awesome. It's kind of fucky because it's with the state of Colorado, but it is apolitical. It's not a politics thing. It's not being brought up by a party. It just primarily being funded by the state more than anything else. But
by tax dollars.
By tax dollars.
So I went to the event in Alamosa. Or was that Alamosa? No, it was in Monte Vista. I can't even remember. It was in the San Luis Valley, and it was Matt, as you mentioned, whose last name I can't pronounce. and Craig, who also his last name I can't pronounce. And it's a mental health advocacy for veterans in the San Luis Valley.
Yeah.
And I went to this thing to provide the training so that the attendees could get a concealed carry permit. And also, I learned a lot. And I know stuff about this, but I actually learned quite a bit
Correct.
from Matt's presentation.
Yeah.
And some of the discussion that happened from the attendees. And I think that we kind of acknowledge, generally speaking, that there is a mental health component, and we don't take the time to spend learning about it and what we can do about it. And so, if you can make it to Vail, or they may have like a webcam view of it or something, participation shows the gun community cares. And like Edgar said, apolitical. You've been a part of this board for a few years now.
Yeah, so I'm part of, it's called FIPI for short, but it's Firearms Injury Prevention Initiative. I'm trying to pull it up here. Injury, just so you guys can go. Prevention Initiative. Yeah, see you. Boom. So anyways, I've been a part of the advisory board for FIPI for, this is going to be my second year that I've been doing this. And I think my family thinks that I just go and jump on Zoom for a few hours and do absolutely nothing. But there is a lot of learning, and a lot of psychiatrists are involved in this, emergency room doctors, so people who actually deal with the wounds and all that stuff. Me from the instructor perspective, and people that, again, doctors, therapists, psychiatrists, people who hate guns, people who love guns, kind of come together and like, hey, we all acknowledge there's a problem. Negative outcomes with guns is not an okay thing. How do we reduce this without getting government involved? No politics. In fact, it is prohibited to invite politicians into these meetings. It cannot. People have been like, oh, my local person, they want to run for office. Like, nope. If it has anything to do with politics, we don't want it involved. Only because this should not be tainted by politics, and merely look for community-based solutions. That's why I appreciate it. But for those of you guys that are willing or want to learn more and maybe can't make it up to Vail, there is ways that you guys can get on a phone call, and Matt actually works for them. He's employed by them. I'm only on the advisory board for them. Matt actually works for them. He has a lot of good information, really a lot of good information. So if you guys are interested in that, go check it out. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's coming up? You've got a home defense tactics or home tactics
Sure.
in the home course with Rob coming up in August. Is that correct?
No, it's just me.
It's just you? Okay.
Yeah.
And we are updating our training starting August 7th. We are going to meet the state requirements. It's going to be a huge pain in the ass. And I'm really looking forward to struggling through all that and watching the confused look on students' faces when, even though we told them 50 times when they were signing up that you're not getting a certificate till you complete all the training, they're still going to be frustrated. So, our classes are on our website. There's going to be a lot more shooting going on. So if you haven't shot with us and you're looking for an opportunity to get a couple of hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, just look at our calendar and see what's coming up for shooting. And then also we're going to be developing the concealed carry competition. Is that still?
There's already one coming up.
Okay. When is,
So
do you know the date?
September, hold on. September 7th, if I'm not mistaken.
7th.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I probably have classes that day. Oh,
Yeah.
no, wait. My calendar is not set yet, so maybe I can make it up.
So we're doing a lot more competitions, because competitions will qualify you to obtain your concealed handgun permit in the state of Colorado, and in many other states, by the way. Many states have that clause where if you are competing with your firearm, that counts towards your training. So in the state of Colorado, if you participate in a competition, sanctioned competition, it can't be your neighbor's see who shoots themselves in the face faster competition. As it still has to be a sanctioned competition. Guns for Everyone National is known throughout the U.S. to hold competitions. We are a national nonprofit organization, so you guys are invited for that as well.
All right. Well, if you made it this far, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the future. Comments, questions, all that stuff. You know how to reach us. Get involved. Don't stay on the sidelines. Man, I feel like I'm in a football movie.
Donate. Go to our
Donate.
website. Go donate to Isaac. Go do all that shit.
Edgar's got.
I owe Isaac money. So go
Yeah.
send
Edgar
it to
pay
Isaac.
me back. Edgar's got worked out monthly donations to Guns for Everyone to support the work we do. $5 a month would be huge.
Yeah, $3, $20.
Yeah, $500 a month would be huge too.
Amazing.
Yeah.